So we'll start tonight the sugya of mitzvah strichas kavana. I don't expect to finish it in one night, but we'll give it a shot. It's a very profound sugya. I'm very excited about it. So we'll start with the Gemara Rosh Hashanah on Daf Chav Ches. This is perhaps the famous address for mitzvah strichas kavana. And just out of curiosity, how many people here were able to look at that sugya? A few of you? Okay, you took a look at it?
But we did it before we went through it in Kedushin a little bit. We
spent
some time on it.
Okay, offhand I don't see the connection to Kedushin, but...
Psachim, that's what I mean. Right?
Oh, Psachim makes more sense.
Right. Psachim, right.
That makes a little more sense. Right. Okay, Shalach le la'avua d'Shmuel. Kafu ve'achal matzah yotza. He was forced to eat matzah. And he's yotze. When I say he was forced, he obviously had no interest in the mitzvah of achilas matzah. Again, you might ask, isn't it a little bit odd that somebody forced him to eat matzah dafka on Leil HaPesach, of all days? Kafel man. Who forced him? Because what were the circumstances of this coercion? The question of coercion is a very fundamental one in halach, in any lahavdil, in any legal system. When you're coerced into any sort of a business transaction or into marriage. The sugya in Kedushin about forcing a woman to agree to get married. Agav unsa machni nafshe, if you remember. But here's a case where a person is forced to do a mitzvah. So we're not dealing with what you would call a chalos. We're not talking with a classical case of a transaction, a deal, schia. Marriage. What do you say?
A schia. Zachin.
We're not dealing with a zachin kind of halacha. We're dealing with a halacha of kiyum mitzvah. We have to define whether or not a mitzvah that's fulfilled under coercion counts as a mitzvah. Now, this is no geya, first of all, as to whether or not he gets rewarded for the mitzvah. It's also no geya if now he wants to implement the mitzvah, has he already been yotze the mitzvah? They can't make a new bracha if he was already yotze. It might also be no geya if he didn't have kavana, but somebody else heard his mitzvah. For example, not in the case of matzah so much, but in the case of shofar that's going to come. So, Ruvain was coerced to blow the shofar, but Shimon heard the kol shofar from Ruvain, so that's another dimension, meaning if Ruvain is yotze, then Shimon who heard him could be yotze. So there are many different dimensions to the question of mitzvah strichas kavana or not. In fact, in brachos, you also have a mitzvah to recite a bracha. What happens if you thought that you were drinking wine and you drank beer, and those are two different brachos, and therefore two different mitzvahs. And then at the end, just before you made the chasima of the bracha, you caught yourself and you realized, hey, what do I have in my cup? It's not yayin, it's sheikhar. So you switched gears and ended up with a different chasima. But his original kavana was for yayin, and then he ended up with sheikhar. You have all these cases of kavana. So kafu man, who forced him to eat matzah? So the Gemara says, ilema kafu shade. How would you translate the word shade? And don't fall into my trap here. I don't mean the classical. Don't tell me what shade means. In the beginning of brachas. When you figure out how to deal with the shade. What does shade mean here in this context? Correct. I would call it a seizure. Kafu shade means he was grabbed, so to speak. At this moment in time, he's not mentally lucid. And once again, we're touching on a gigantic sugya of what's called shota and itim shota, itim cholim, that is no get to many sugyas and shas. So the Gemara says, "Vatanya itim cholim itim shota kshu cholim areyu kepikach lechol dvar kshu shota areyu keshota lechol dvarav." Therefore, if he was grabbed by this inner movement, this demon within him, some sort of psychiatric state, then he was a shota at that point. He wasn't working, as we would say colloquially, with a full deck. And in that sense, he's mufka from the mitzvah. He's completely potter from the mitzvah. You may have cases, by the way, of an eved, for example, who's potter from a mitzvah, and then he fulfills the mitzvah voluntarily, and then his adon is meshacher him. So you may raise the question, well, that which he did previously as an eved, and he was potter in a mitzvah, can that count for the kiyum mitzvah now that he's meshucher and he's chayiv in the mitzvah? In other words, what I do b'ptur, can it count for what I am for my state now in chiyuv? But that doesn't apply in the case of a shota, because the maisa shota lav maisa hav, and therefore the mitzvah of matzah, which was implemented by a shota, is totally meaningless halachically. Now he becomes a bikeach. Let's say bar mitzvah. This would be an interesting question. There's one shita that a person becomes bar mitzvah me'es la'es. So let's say at the beginning of the night of the Seder, he was a katan and he ate matzah. And at 12 midnight, he becomes a gadol. He becomes bar mitzvah. Would he have to eat another kizayis matzah? So then you have to ask the question, does a katan have the same status as a shota?
12 midnight would be after chatzos.
What do you say?
12 midnight would be after chatzos, to be pater anyway.
Right. Well, okay, we had a whole discussion about this, but...
12 midnight.
So what would you say about that? Is a katan exactly like a shota? And he get into complicated issues that taka would have been relevant yesterday if the Beis HaMikdash stood on Pesach Sheni. Let's say he was a katan at the time Pesach Rishon, and he participated in Achilas HaPesach. Let's say he was part of a Chabura, Zachal Yadam Shalom B'fanav, you could be Zoch on behalf of katan, and now it's Pesach Sheni. He's a gadol now. Not just Sfiras HaOmer is relevant.
Why yesterday? Today.
So today he's a gadol, and the question is he chayiv in Pesach Sheni? The Rambam, I think, is in, I don't remember, Perek Tes Milchus Korban Pesach, says that he's potter from Pesach Sheni. It means that the korban that was brought for a katan is meaningful, even though now he's a gadol. That would not be the case in with regard to a shota.
Is that the reason why he's potter? If he didn't have Pesach and Pesach Rishon, would he have to eat on Pesach Sheni?
Yeah, the Rambam is saying that had he not brought the korban Pesach as a katan, he's chayiv in Pesach Sheni. But because he brought the korban, again, when I say bring the korban, he's got to be part of a chabura. But he participated in the korban, and it was olelo as a katan. Therefore, he's part of Pesach Sheni. That would not be the case in regard to a shota. Shota is complete. Shota is what I call is mufka from any chiyuv. A katan is potter. An isha is petura. If a woman opts to hear shofar, then that's meaningful. I mean, Rabbeinu Tam goes far as to say that she can make a brach on that. So you always have to differentiate in halacha between a gavra who's mufka from the chiyuv and a gavra who's pot. He's alleviated. A shota is mufka from the chiyuv, and therefore that which he ate as a shota, because he wasn't working with a full set of marbles, so now he became a pikech. He's got to eat matzah again. So how could Avuah the Shmuel have accepted this halacha of Yatzah? So the Gemara therefore goes down a different path. Omer Rav Ashi shekafu parsiyim. Interesting. So he was not motivated to eat matzah, he was forced to do so, coerced by parsiyim. God knows why the parsiyim are forcing him to eat matzah on Leil HaPesach. The salvation comes from the strangest sources here. I mean, that he would eat the Pesach, eat the matzah because of the parsim, I don't know. But certainly he didn't have what? Kavana. And this leads us to the sugya that we want to deal with tonight. What is the status of a mitzvah act without Kavana? And Sholchel Elavu Dishmul Yatza. So the Gemara says, well, let's look at Rashi first. Rashi says, "Kafu parsim afagav delonis kaven lotzeis yidei chovas matzah b'el rishon shel Pesach yotza." So, what conclusion will we derive from Sholchel Elavu Shmuel? Everybody together as one unit. Mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavana, which means one of two things. It might mean that somehow there is kavana, Or it might mean that Kavana is not necessary in a mitzvah, but rather the Maisa mitzvah reigns supreme. And then you can flip it around in Isurim. What happens if you do an Isur without Kavana? That's called a Davar Sheino Miskami. Do we say, well, the Maisa Avera generates the Avera per se? Or do I say, no, unless it was intended as an Avera, it lacks the status of a Maisa Avera. That would be the flip side. So what is going to be the implication now about shofar? Supposing I blow shofar without kavanah for the mitzvah of shofar. Omar Rav is also meres hatokel l'shir yatza. We have to see what l'shir means. But he fulfills his mitzvah. The Gemara says pshita inu hach. Why does Rav have to reformulate in a different context the same principle that we derive from Avud Shmuel? Namely, that mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavana. For sure, he's yotze the mitzvah of shofar, even though he was tokeah lewat l'shir. So the Gemara now presents a very complex explanation of the havamina. What would I have thought without Rav? We know the kafu lechol matzah yotze, but tokeah l'shir lo yotze in the havamina. Why would I argue that tokeah l'shir lo yotze? The Gemara says the following: Ma'u detema hasam echol matzah omrachmona va'achil. Now the Gemara finds itself compelled to explain why he was yotzei the mitzvah of matzah, even though he had no kavanah. I'm a little bit upset about that. Why did the Gemara need to work hard to give me this whole sophisticated explanation if the universal rule is mitzvos einam tzrichas kavana? The Gemara just could have said, either dropped the whole line and started, zoom in straight away into shofar, or alternatively, the Gemara could have said, Ma'u deteva hasam mitzvos einam tzrichas kavana of a shofar zanderish. But what did the Gemara have to give this whole explanation? Echol matzah v'rachmana v'kacha. It seems like a wasted sentence. I don't know if anybody had any ideas on it.
Emphasizing that what matters is the action of the mitzvah. And here the action of the mitzvah was done, whereas we're going to contrast that.
Yeah, but why did you have to quote the pasuk? Echol matzah v'rachmana. I don't know, there's something when you see a Gemara that says Amar Achmana, you mean like I'm darshaning the pasuk, there's something in the scriptures that that leads me to this conclusion. Okay. I don't know, from the perspective of matzah as a universal mitzvah. Okay, you just told me that mitzvah saying in tzrichas kavana. You don't have to be compelled in a defensive position to explain why you're yotze in matzah. Explain to me why you're not yotze in the case of shofar, which the Gemara is going to proceed to do. Just give me one more minute. Aval hacha, but here, with regard in Parshas Emor, what does it say about shofar? Zichron DOV. By the way, is this the only mitzvah of shofar that we find in the Torah? Elsewhere, the Torah says what? Yom Trua Yelachem. So we have two psukim with regard to the chiv. The source for the mitzvah of shofar is a twofold source, and we've discussed on many occasions that when there are two sources for the same mitzvah, they might be indicative of two different dimensions or two different categories of a mitzvah. The Gemara is now putting all its eggs into one basket, that the Torah says Zichron Trua v'homis asek bi almahu. I don't know if the Gemara means misasek bi alma because of Zichron Trua, or the Gemara means that tokeah l'shir, even from the universal general rules, would be considered misasek. The classical case of misasek in shofar is not tokeah l'shir, but rather, if he wants to get something out of the shofar, there's something stuck in the shofar, some sort of phlegm got in the shofar, whatever it might be. So he blows out what's inside the shofar. What happens when he blows out to clear out the shofar?
Makes kolos.
He ends up with a tkiyah, and probably a shvarim. I don't know exactly how that happened. But that's the classical case of misasek. Who can give me a very, very precise and abridged definition of misasek? Don't all answer at once.
Preoccupied with something else.
Okay. He's unaware of the mice itself. In other words, he's involved in doing X and Y happens. I think a good term in English would be inadvertent. So what happened was inadvertent. For example, the Gemara says, what's the case of Misasek in Nezikin? He didn't realize that he had a brick that was sitting on his lap. He stood up and the brick went flying and did damage. Or if you take, for example, the case of Misasek B'chalovim, he had no idea that there was chalev there. So there was no intention for the act at all. You see, normally when we talk about Dover Sheina Miskavein, he had intention for the action. He didn't have intention for the goal or the purpose of the action. If he didn't have any intention for the action itself, there was no awareness of the action that he's involved in. He was preoccupied, as you say very well, with something else. And lo and behold, his Galgal Adover, and this is what came out, that's Misasik in Kol HaTorah. But it's very hard for me to use those standards of Misasik and apply them to Tokei L'Shir. Because in Tokei L'Shir, what is he aware of? What is he intending to do?
Blow the shofar.
To blow the shofar, to get the tkiyas out, to the coals. What he's not interested in is the goal. So what's lacking here, in the case of Tokei L'Shir, would not be misasek that there's a lack of awareness and an interest in doing the Maisa, but rather the motivation, the goal, which draws him into the Maisa. That would really place Tokei L'Shir under the classical category of Dover Sheino Miskavein. So therefore I would be very much inclined to believe that the misasek here, as it's used in this context of Tokei L'Shir, is a very unique one. And it reflects the pasuk of what? Zichron Trua. And what is the Torah apparently revealing me in this pasuk of Zichron Trua? It's not just enough to what?
To do Maisa Mitzvah.
To do the Maisa Mitzvah, you need an awareness. A Zikaron. If you're lacking that mental, emotional awareness, the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, it's kilifnai v'lifnim dami. That's how powerful the Zichron Shofar is. So if you're not aware of that, then basically you didn't even do the Maisa Mitzvah. It's Misasek. What would be a parallel to that kind of Misasek where you're totally unaware of the Zichron, the emotional or intellectual element or dimension of the Mitzvah?
Shema.
Kriyat Shema, good. And what else? Very closely related. Tefillah. So supposing you're standing in Shmon Esrei and you're thinking about the
Yankees.
The Stanley Cup Yankees, or I don't know, the blue. What are they called here? The
Maple Leafs.
No, the Maple Leafs. Yeah, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Do they still have those guys around? Yeah.
Next year.
When I was a kid, it was like Bobby Hull, from Montreal. I don't know. Chicago. I don't know. At one time, I think he was in Montreal. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Never.
So. Your mind is on stocks and bonds, and you're standing Shmon Esrei. You're lacking the awareness of Amidah Lifnei Ashchina. Therefore, I would say you're misasek. And the Gemara by parallel applies this to Shofar. Shofar, the Torah says, is Zichron Trua. If you're lacking the element of Zichron, you have no concept of emotional, intellectual connection to the Zikaron of Shofar, is misasek bi'almu. And this was the Havamina before Rav. Okay, now we got to get down to brass tacks. The Gemara postulates that if mitzvos einam tzrichas kavana, then kafu parsiim, if he was forced to eat matzah, he's not in the least bit motivated by the mitzvah, yot. If, on the other hand, mitzvos tzrichos kavana, his intention is not for the sake of the mitzvah, lo yot. How this applies to shofar is the havamin and the maskana, Omar Rava Tokei L'Shir yot. Now, on this Gemara, again, I don't know if there's a Gemara Rosh Hashanah here by any chance that I could, I was looking for one before and I couldn't find one. There's a very important line in Rabbeinu Chananel. Are you aware of this Rabbeinu Chananel? This Rabbeinu Chananel, thank you so much, has baffled the minds of the Rishonim and the Achronim ever since he wrote this. Rashi says, Tokel Shir, why was he blowing for Shir? Rashi says, Lizimra. You'll take a look on the page I gave you. Rashi says, does anybody have the Rashi?
L'shorer L'zamer.
L'shorer L'zamer. Again, I can't tell you that shofar would be my first choice in a symphony orchestra. I don't know exactly why it's L'shorer L'zamer. Then he gives a second shot in the name of one of his Rebbeim. And what does he say here? He says, "Ubisodo shel Mori Rabbi Yitzchak ben Yehuda Reisi atokel l'shaved lavriach ruach ra me'ol." Oh, I don't know. Tokel l'shaved. That's already a pretty extreme kind of case. Taisus and Psachim on Dav Zayin has a whole discussion about Mila. Why is he doing the Mila? So Tos says there was special takana of Lachniso Bebruso to recite another bracha, so you shouldn't Chashon think that he's doing the Mila for some other form of idol worship and so forth. But here Rashi says in the name of Rabbi Yehuda that it's got to be a case. I mean, what's Tokel L'Shira L'Zimra, but rather it's Tokel L'Shaved. I would have thought, I think maybe that's why Rashi in his first pshat rejects this pshat, that Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yehuda, because Tokel L'Shaved is more than just an absence of kavana. If I'm eating a steak, so that doesn't have any status. I mean, Tokel L'Shaved. That I don't know if that comes under the question of mitzvah tzrichas kavana, ain't tzrichas kavana. If you hold mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavana, but still, it's got to be a neutral act that somehow is suitable to upgrade and it can become a mitzvah act. I'm very hard pressed to understand how a Tokel L'Shaved could be yotzei the mitzvah of Tkiyas Shofar. But Rashi adds a few words. He says, "La'avriach ruach ra'a me'olav." He's not really blowing for the shade. You remember the Ramban in Parshas Achrimos, the famous Ramban about Soya Mishtaleach. You know what I'm talking about? The number of Rishonim assume that the Soya Mishtaleach is kind of like a Soya that Hashem says to send to the heads of the tumah, the kolchas hatumah, the demons, the shadim, and so forth and so on. All right, so he's Tokel L'Shaved. Some people might say that when you do nanuim with a lulav, you're also pushing away, some sort of ruach ra. I don't know. But Rabbeinu Chananel has a fantastic chidush here in his interpretation of Tokel L'Shaved. He's not willing to say L'Zimra because probably it's not the most beautiful instrument that one would choose unless he was waking up his friend or making him deaf. I mean, the Sugya Chovel, by blowing a shofar in his ear or blowing reverie. I guess if you want to get a guy out to what we call mifkad in the morning, if in the army they used to wake us up at all these crazy hours, to get us out, and stand there for the, what's it called in English? When all the soldiers have to get out for the morning lineup or something. You know what I mean? Anyway, so you could blow a shofar, but L'Zimra, what? Mifkad. Why would you blow a shofar, for Shira and Zimra? So Rabbeinu Chananel seems to have solved this problem. I don't exactly understand how, but he says the following: Hatokei l'shir yotza kigon hadichsiv hallelu b'teika shofar shetokea lahalel hallelu teika shofar b'teika shofar shetokim lahalel. I'm a little confused because there's no hal on Rosh Hashanah, but he decided that there's no hal b'peh on Rosh Hashanah, but there's hal b'kli. So he decided to fulfill the mitzvah of halu b'teika shofar. That tkiyah shofar is a kiyum of halel. Interesting. It comes out according to Rabbeinu Chananel that Tokel L'Shir. How would you conceptualize it? What form or what expression of mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavana or einam tzrichas kavana comes to the fore? Nobody's with me on this? No. Okay.
You want to say halal, and use kavana of halal.
Right now, I'm saying, can you place this within the broader perspective of issues that dealing with mitzvah tzrichas kavana or not? How would you define the structure that Rabbeinu Chanal is presenting here in the case of Tokei L'Shir? Normally, mitzvah tzrichas kavana, ain't tzrichas kavana means I do an action and I'm motivated for my own personal benefits. What is the case of Tokei L'Shir according to Rabbeinu Chanana?
Two different mitzvahs.
Exactly. There are two mitzvahs that can be fulfilled with what?
Same action.
With one action. And the question is, what is he intending? Is he intending mitzvah A or mitzvah B? In this case, there's halal, achieved through Tkiya, as I state in Pasuk, or Zichron Trua. The Torah says, blow the shofar and fulfill the mitzvah of Rosh Hashanah. So there are two mitzvahs that both inhere in one action. Do you follow what I'm saying? Zwei mitzvahs was liegen in ein Maisa, in ein Pa'ula. So says Rabbeinu Chananel that his kavana was halu b'teika shofar, and it was not for the mitzvah of shofar and Rosh Hashanah. Then he goes on and he drops a bomb. I mean, if this itself wasn't radical, he says, Im taka kis sidron, if he was tokea according to the seder of the tkiyos, af al pishahu l'shir, even though he's motivated to fulfill which mitzvah? Halel. Hashomea yotza ki mitzvos einam tzrichos kavon. Did you catch the bar? No, Rabbosai, help me out over here. What? He says, Hashomea yotza ki mitzvos einam tzrichos kavon.
Sounds like Tata de Satre, but...
Forget about Tata de Satre, just tell me what he says. Teichwerte, what steht da?
He says that the Shemea is Yaitse.
But not?
But not the Mashmiya.
Right, but not the Tokeh.
Well, this is not clear. Because at the beginning it says, Hatokeh l'ashir yatsa. So he does not exclude that.
Correct, but he says, Hatokeh l'ashir yatsa mi yatsa. And that's what he explains. Af al pishahu l'ashir hashomea yatsa.
Okay.
Where is this Rabbeinu Chanal flying from?
Right.
I mean, if you're holding mitzvah tzrichas kavana, then I don't even know if anyone was yotze. We'll see that sugya later on. And if mitzvah ain't tzrichas kavana, why can't the tokeh be yotze?
Because the way he understands it, a lack of consciousness is yotze. But having the consciousness to do something else, so denies...
Excellent, beautiful. It's a little bit similar to what I was hinting at by tokeh l'shev in Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rashi, but it's different. Tokeh l'shev is a fundamental issue. You know how you can be yotze mitzvah by having kavanah l'shev, but again lavriach as I say maybe. But in Rabbeinu Chananel, the issue is going to be as follows: can you take a maisa and give it a definite identity, determine its personality? It's no longer parva, it's not neutral, it has a definite ishiyut, a personality of its own, identity of its own, and then use that same action for a mitzvah other than the one that you were interested in. Meaning, if you aren't kovea the maisa for a mitzvah at all, that's one issue. And mitzvah seinan tzrichas kavana means that the maisa is koveas atzmo me'elav. Automatically, it's nikba, and it's nikba as a maisa mitzvah. But here in this case, you are kovea the maisa as a mitzvah of halu b'teika shofar. Now, can that maisa serve a double function through the mechanism of mitzvah seinan tzrichas kavana and form and serve as a kiyum, a fulfillment of the mitzvah of shofar? And in answering this question, Rabbeinu Chananel comes up with a very complex answer. Nothing simple. He says yes and no. As far as the tokeh is concerned, the answer is no. But as far as the shomeh is concerned, the answer is yes. Had I held mitzvos tzrichos kavana, then even the shomeh wouldn't be yotze. But since I maintain, based on the sugya of Avur de Shmuel in Matzah, that mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavana. Therefore, at least I grant you that in tokel shir, for the sake of halub, it's still say halub take a shofar. The shomea is yotze. What's that all about?
Does he say that tokel is not yotze?
He doesn't say it out loud, but by implication, I mean, nobody spoke about a shomea at all. Something must have compelled Rabbeinu Chananel to introduce the shomea here. What bothered Rabbeinu Chananel?
What's the mitzvah of halal that you've put into this?
I don't know. I can't answer.
You've laid that and you've sort of built a whole sugya on top.
Well,
of
I don't know. If Rabbeinu Chananel was here, you and I would both beg him to reveal what he has in mind. You see, if he was talking about matzah,
you needn't have.
So on Leil Pesach, you could say that there's a kiyum of tokea, of tkiya, mitzvah of Hallel on Leil Pesach. I don't know what the mitzvah of Hallel would be here in this context.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
Why did you go that far?
I'm just saying. He says the chsiv. Why did whenever you whenever you see a Rishon who quotes a pasuk that the Gemara doesn't quote,
but not al mitzvah.
You should jump out of your chair.
It shouldn't be al mitzvah.
Well, why is he quoting a pasuk? He says atokel shir yatsa kigon. What's the example? Hadichsiv alud b'teika shofar shetokel lahalil. Maybe Rabbeinu Chananel had a different girsa than we have, but that's not going to make me any more comfortable. The point is whether he had a different girsa or he created this whole fantastical chiddush. What is bothering Rabbeinu Chananel? So you'll tell me he doesn't understand what's motivating this fellow to blow. Maybe he's a fruma yid. Why is he blowing shofar? And the answer is Rabbeinu Chananel came up with a reason why he's blowing shofar.
I have a problem with it because Alulu b'teika shofar, part of the essence of the day of Rosh Hashanah is hamlichuni aleichem.
Right.
The Indian of shofar is we see across Tanakh is used for a concept of hamlocha. So even if he was saying to be mahalal because hamlichuni aleichem, okay, so that's also part of mitzvah saying.
Right, but that's not what he's saying.
It's intertwined all through our tefillos. I mean,
Right, but again, but I don't understand how that helps me with Rabbeinu Chananel. Or are you asking a question? That's what
I'm asking on Rabbeinu Chananel. Okay, I mean, so why shouldn't he be Yaitse? It's Zichron Trua, and that's the problem that you need a.
Right, but he's not doing it l'shem hamlichuni aleichem. He's doing it l'shem halal.
Where does one?
All right, Rabbi, let's move on. I'm going to come back to this Rabbeinu Chananel in just a minute. If I can beg your patience here, I would like to see the Turiev. If you have this page, are there any extra copies? So take a look at the Turiev. Rabbi, there's a shita of Rabbeinu Yonah in the name of Rabbeinu Shmuel. It's also the sheet of Tosfos and Brachos, apparently.
Is it in these notes as well?
I don't. He may refer to it. I don't remember. Yeah, I think he does refer to it at some point.
Perhaps a couple of times.
But the main page, if you want to follow in here, the main page that you want to focus on is Kuf Samach Ches. Do you have that again? You might not have it because I don't think you got that far. Kuf Samach Ches. You have that?
Yeah.
All right. There's a school of Rishonim, please give me your attention, that maintain the following position. Even if I grant you that mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavana, but if he has kavana shalolates, is eino yotze. And that sheet is identified with Rabbeinu Shmuel, quoted by Rabbeinu Yonah, with Tosfos, more than one Tosfos. There's a Tosfos in Sukkah. How do we implement the rule of overlasiyasan? So he has many different options, 4 options if I remember correctly, one of which is to have kavana shalolates. So he picks up the Daled Minim with kavana shalolates, then he recites his bracha, then he has kavana lates, and everything's fine. Tosfos but mitzvahs einim tzrichas kavana. The answer is, but here he has kavana shalolates. Good? Good. So here the Tur Yemen has a problem. His problem is based on a Gemara in Erev. And you'll see that over here, where it starts.
Which Agav goes to answer a little bit of what you answered at the beginning. If you Einot Tzrichas Kavana, then what does that mean? No Kavana?
Right. It might touch on that Hakir. Yeah, very good. Do you see right below the bold, just to give you an address, Erevin Tzadihe. Tana. Hamotze tefillin. He finds tefillin in the public thoroughfare, and of course he wants to take it into the house, but it's Shabbos. So there's a problem of hotzah. So what's going to be the solution? How do you get tefillin from place X, which is Rosh Hashanah, to place Y, which is Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos? What's your option? You wear them. So here, the Mishnah records Machlokas Tanoi. The Tanakama says, Machnisam zug zug. He's only allowed to wear one pair of tefillin at a time. So he's going to have to make one trip with one pair of tefillin, go back after he took off the tefillin and make a second trip. Why can't he wear two pairs of tefillin at the same time?
Baltos.
Exactly, Baltos. Rabbi Gamliel Omer, Shnayim Shnayim. Rabbi Gamliel says there's no problem of Baltosif. Let him wear two pairs of tefillin at the same time. And why is that? So the Gemara says that the machlokas between the Tanakama and Rabbi Gamliel is our machlokas. B'mitzvos tzrichos kavana pligi. Tanakama sovar mitzvos ein tzrichos kavana. Lo lotes v'lo lavar al baltosif. Meaning, even though he's not interested one iota in fulfilling the mitzvah of tefillin, it's Shabbos, he's interested in saving the tefillin, therefore he doesn't have kavana lotes, but nevertheless, since mitzvahs einon tzrichas kavana, he obtains a mitzvah, and therefore by wearing two pairs of tefillin, he involves himself in what problem, what violation? Baltos. The imachnis shnayim shnayim afal gav dienu miskaven lemitzvah over b'baltos. Rabbi Gamliel savar mitzvos tzrichos kavan. Bein lotes, bein lava. So therefore you can wear two pairs of tefillin if you maintain the mitzvah tzrichos kavana, because since he doesn't have kavana,
so he can't be over on baltos.
He can't be over on baltos. So it's therefore machnis on shnayim shnayim.
What's that, levush?
Yeah. The keva deinu miskaven lemitzvah ain't over. Good. Frekt the Even. The e b'miskaven behedja shelo lotzes enu yotze afilu man the omar mitzvahs ein tzrichas kavana. If I maintain like this say of Rishonim that kuliyamalo pligi, even though in general mitzvahs ein tzrichas kavana, and he's yotze without kavana, but if he has kavana shelo lotzes, he's not Yotze. Im Kain Tanakama Nami Yachnish Shnaim Shnaim. What's the problem with Tanakama who maintains mitzvah and tzrichas kavana? He'll violate Baltosif. Why? Because there is a meaning to the mitzvah even without kavana. So the Torah Even says, but let him have kavana shelo lotzes. Why does Tanakama present an absolute conclusion that there's no way you can wear two pairs of tefillin because of Baltosif? There's a very simple resolution to this problem. He's not interested in the mitzvah. Let him declare, I don't want to be yotze in the mitzvah. It's kavana shelo lotzes. V'yechavin lehedja shelo lotzes. A brilliant question of the Turi Even, and he's so impressed by this question. Alavade shmamina de lotzes v'lavar afilu b'miskavin lehedja shelo l'shem mitzvah yotze. If you hold mitzvah saying in tzrichas kavana yotze, even with a negative kavana shelo lotzes.
You have the same kasha from the Gemara Shoshana. The Gemara says we have a daven that's one matana beside with four matanas is machlekes panayim. What should you do? Either you have a Baal Tigra or you have a Baal Taisef. So you have a simple pshat. You mechaber not to be yotze. Do make matnas arba.
And then, if you have kavana shelo lotzes, then kliyamalo pligi that you're not makayim the mitzvah, and therefore, if so facto, you won't violate baltos. So here we have to get into the very fundamental question about what mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavana means and what mitzvahs tzrichas kavana means. So let's start with mitzvahs tzrichas kavana. Without kavana, you're not yotze. Yesh lach. Two possibilities. Does it mean, according to that shita of mitzvah tzrichas kavana, that kavana is necessary to set up the Maisa mitzvah, the Guf Maisa mitzvah, and without Kavana it's not called a Maisa mitzvah? Or no? Kuliyamalo pligi that even without Kavana it's a Maisa mitzvah. But what's the issue here? There's a halach in Kiyum HaMitzvah that unless you have Kavana Lotzeis, you cannot obtain the Kiyum HaMitzvah.
What does that mean?
Okay. We're asking the following question. How do you understand mitzvah's tzrichas kavana? Do you understand it that without kavana, it's not a maisa mitzvah? The precondition of any fulfillment of a mitzvah, it's got to have a Torah's maisa mitzvah. If you don't have kavana, it's a secular, mundane act. It doesn't have the status of a maisa mitzvah. That's one way of learning. The second way of learning is that no, it's a Maisa Mitzvah. The Torah told you to do it. You did it at the right time, in the right form, in the right shape. It's a Maisa Mitzvah. But there's another condition external to the Maisa condition, to the Maisa Mitzvah. That is a condition in the Kiyum HaMitzvah. The Kiyum HaMitzvah is suspended until you have Kavana.
I'm just trying to say, what does that mean, Kiyum HaMitzvah?
The Kiyum mitzvah means the credit for the mitzvah.
You're going to say
the status of the mitzvah.
There's components that build up a mitzvah. Either say I have a maisa and I need some sort of consciousness to go through, and that in combination creates it. That was A.
That's A.
B,
the consciousness creates that action.
In combination gives reality to the mitzvah.
Or the kavana is independent of the maisa. The maisa is there, but there's another condition that you cannot fulfill a mitzvah unless you have consciousness.
So whatever created with a maisa and it's in part B, in the absence of the Q. Well, what does that give rise to? What is that reality?
Say it again, I didn't catch what you said. I'm sorry.
Example B.
Right. Definition B.
Definition B. Maisa mitzvah, but sans a kiyuma mitzvah. So what is
sans meaning it's missing?
Was missing, yeah.
Okay.
So
that's probably French. Yeah.
What does that mean? What have you created? What is the key?
You've created a Maisa mitzvah, which we'll see what nafkaminas there are if we have the Maisa mitzvah at least. But you're lacking the kiyuma mitzvah. The Torah says you cannot be Mekayim mitzvah.
I the word, I just can't put a...
You haven't fulfilled your obligation until you have Kavana. Lacking Kavana, we're going to negate your fulfillment of your obligation. Your obligation includes not just a Maisa mitzvah, it doesn't begin and end with that. That takes you halfway or 3/4 of the way, but there's one little part that's very critical in order to achieve your full goal, reach your goal of saying to God, I fulfilled my mitzvah, and that is Kavana. Without Kavana...
Are you saying it's sort of a tiered set of accomplishments?
Yeah. Okay? So I have here in front of me a sefer which is called Chidushe Rabbi Shlomo on Masechta Rosh Hashanah, the Rashiv of Torah V'das, Rabbi Shlomo Hyman. And he's aware of this Chakira, and he says that in his mind there's no question that the halacha of Kavana, according to that mandiyoma that requires Kavana, is in the very Maisa mitzvah. He says, Ein Lomar, don't even entertain the possibility that din Kavana hu rak din bekiyum ha-mitzvah, di'enu mekayim es ha-mitzvah b'li Kavana. V'raya lezeh, mihadin is kavein shomea, v'lon is kavein mashmiya. Supposing the shofar blower had Kavana for the mitzvah, but the one who heard it, I'm sorry, just the other way around. This kavein shomea means the one who heard the shofar had Kavana, he wants to be yotzei. V'lon is kavein mashmiya. Kigon, what would be a case where the mashmiya did not have Kavana, but the shomea did? Tokel l'shir. D'lo yotza shomea l'man diyomer mitzvah strichas Kavana. So in this case, each individual would need Kavana, because we're going according to Maniyom who says mitzvahs strichos Kavana. Now, if two people both fulfill that mitzvah, one of them had Kavana, one didn't, then one would be Yotzei and one wouldn't be Yotzei. Correct? So the Mashmiah, what motivated him to blow the shofar? He was the Tokel L'Shir. So he's missing Kavana. He cannot be Yotzei. But what about the Shomea? The Shomea heard the shofar, and yet he's not Yotzei, correct? Just 1 second. Niskaven shomea v'lo niskaven mashmiya is lo yotza. Why wasn't the shomea yotze? I understand why the mashmiya wasn't yotze. He didn't have kavanah. But why isn't the shomea yotze? He had kavanah.
It's a different gathering mitzvah.
Says Reb Shlomo, because the chisaron is in the guf maisa mitzvah. Since the kavanah is lacking, the maisa mitzvah doesn't get off the ground. And therefore the shomea didn't hear tkiyah shofar. He may have heard the sounds of a shofar, but it's not tkiyah shofar. If, on the other hand, the requirement of kavanah, according to this Mandi Omar, mitzvah srichas kavanah, is in the kiyum mitzvah, so okay, he didn't have kavanah, he's lacking the kiyum mitzvah. The shomea had kavanah, he should be yotzei the mitzvah because he had kavanah. Why is it that the shomea is not yotzei? Which is the Gemara later on Chav Ches Amud Beis. Says Reb Shlomo, you see from here that the requirement of mitzvahs tzrichas kavanah is to set up the Maisa mitzvah. Without kavanah, you don't set it up as a Maisa mitzvah. If it was only a chisaron in the kavanah for kiyum mitzvah, but the Maisa mitzvah is a bona fide, recognized Maisa mitzvah, then the shomea would be yotzi because he had kavanah. Now let's flip it around. Mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavanah. If mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavanah, then it means that the Maisa mitzvah is meaningful even without kavanah. If the Maisa mitzvah is meaningful even without kavanah, then what should happen in a case of kavanah shelo latzes?
On whose part?
We just quoted a whole bunch of Rishonim, Rabbi Yonah, Rabbi Shmuel, Tosfos here, and Sukkah, Tosfos there. They all seem to maintain that a kavanah shelo latzes is kuliyamal pligul yotze. Why not? Why not yotze if had kavanah shelo latzes? If the Maisa itself generates the mitzvah with or without kavanah, then so what if he had kavanah shelo latzes?
Because that kavanah nullifies the Maisa mitzvah.
No,
says Reb Shlomo, it's not that the kavanah nullifies the Maisa mitzvah, because kavanah is irrelevant to the Maisa mitzvah. Here, says Reb Shlomo, is a different halacha. Here's halacha in kiyum mitzvah. What's the halacha in kiyum mitzvah?
You
can't force a person to be mekayim a mitzvah. There's no kiyum mitzvah bal karcho shalot. The man makes a declaration, I'm not interested in this mitzvah. That's called kavanah shelo latzes. Then you can't shove it down my throat. As a result, the halach of the Rishonim, that even if I hold mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavanah, if I had kavanah shelo latzes, I'm not yotzei, that halach is in the kiyum mitzvah. Is memela. Now we understand Rabbeinu Chananel, and we're going to answer up the kasha the Turiev. Rabbeinu Chananel says that tokei l'shir yotze, who's yotze?
The shomea.
The shomea. We're going according to which man the Omar? Avud the Shmuel says that kafur lechol matzah yotze. Omar Rava, so meres tokei l'shir yotze. We're going according to which man the Omar? Eino tzrichas kavanah. Comes along Rabbeinu Chananel and he says the shomea is yotze. Why? What about the tokeah? The answer is he was tokeah l'shem mitzvah cheres. What mitzvah was he interested in fulfilling? The mitzvah of Hallel. Is tokeah l'shem mitzvah cheres is identical with kavanah shelo latzes. It's not some sort of parva neutral, faceless act. This act was directed deliberately for a particular kiyum mitzvah, and therefore he's not interested in being yotzei the other mitzvah. He wants this mitzvah, not that mitzvah. That's kavanah shelo latzes. If it's kavanah shelo latzes, so how could the Gemara say in the name of Rava that tokei l'shir yotza? If all these Rishonim hold that even if I hold mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavanah, if you had kavanah shelo latzes, lo yotza. The answer is, says Rav Shlomo, who's Yotzei? Not the Tokeya, but who's Yotzei? The Shomea. Because what are the Rishonim telling us when they say that Miskaveh Shelo Lotzeis Lo Yotza? Because you can't force what? A Kiyum mitzvah down someone's throat against his will. So it means that the halacha of Lo Yatza is a din in what? Not in a Maisa mitzvah, but in the Kiyum mitzvah. Is therefore the Shomea will be Yotzei. Why will the Shomea be Yotzei? Because I hold mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavana. If mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavana, then I can set up the Maisa mitzvah even without kavana. And for that matter, even with kavana shelo lotzeis. The halacha that Kavana Shelo Lotzeis negates the mitzvah is only halacha the Kiyum mitzvah. But the Maisa mitzvah is a full-blown, recognized Maisa mitzvah. Is therefore the Shomea can be Yotzei. If I hold mitzvahs tzrichas kavana, then without kavana there's no Maisa mitzvah. So therefore the Tokeya cannot be Yotzei, nor can the Shomea be Yotzei, because he didn't hear the Tekiyah shofar. Now we can answer the Turi Evans kasha, and I see I have 60 seconds to do this. What was the Turi Evans kasha? The Tanakama holds mitzvahs tzrichas kavana. Excuse me. The Tanakama holds mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavana, and therefore you can only take one pair of tefillin at a time. Frek the Turi Evan, let him have kavana shelo lotzeis. And if he has kavana shelo lotzeis, is even if you hold mitzvahs ein tzrichas kavana, he's not yotzei. And therefore there's no Baal Tosef. Let him wear two pairs of tefillin with Kavana Shelo Lotzeis. The answer is that Kavana Shelo Lotzeis negates the Kiyum mitzvah. It doesn't undermine the Maisa mitzvah. Therefore, since there's a Maisa mitzvah, the halacha recognized that he's wearing tefillin. What happens if he wears two pairs of tefillin simultaneously? He violates Baal Tosef. Masha Ein Kain, according to the man Yom who holds mitzvah tzrichas kavana. There, if I'm lacking kavana, there's no Maisa mitzvah. If there's no Maisa mitzvah, there's no Baal Tosef. So Rav Gamliel, who holds mitzvahs tzrichos kavana, and therefore if he doesn't have kavana because he's not interested in the mitzvah of tefillin, he's just saving the tefillin, he can wear two pairs of tefillin because the absence of kavana undermines the very Maisa mitzvah. If it undermines the Maisa mitzvah, there's no Baal Tosef. But if I hold mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavana, like the Tanakama, that means the Maisa is meaningful per se, even without what? Kavana. And even if he has Kavana Shelo Lotzeis, Nehi, it's true that we suspend his Kiyum mitzvah. But that's only because there's no Kiyum mitzvah al Karcha Shalanim. But the Maisa mitzvah is definitely recognized the Maisa mitzvah stuff. In any event, no matter how you shell out the cards, you'll always end up with Baal Tosef. Because you have a Maisa mitzvah wearing two pairs of tefillin at the same time. That's Baal Tosef. Therefore, the Tanakama says he can only take one zug at a time. Okay, we'll stop here.